Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I finally wanted to give you guys an update on my surgery and all of that. I'm about 4 months post-op. So I was given 12 weeks of recovery time. I hit the 12 weeks at the beginning of June, but I decided to take a little bit of extra time because I was debating whether I wanted to make this video or not, and I will tell you guys why. I don't want to scare anybody away from having unnecessary procedure because for a lot of women, especially women that are suffering from endometriosis, surgery is ultimately the decision that they have to make in order to get some relief from the pain and all of the other issues that they have from endometriosis. But I also want people to go into their surgeries well informed. I do want to make it known, and I really want to emphasize that I was already sick prior to this. I've had lots of health issues, as you guys know from watching my channel. So I can't say that endometriosis was the source of all of my health problems, or at least the issues that I had been suffering with. For example, digestive issues, issues with my skin, stuff like that. I was hoping that endometriosis was sort of the missing link, as some people would say, the root cause of, what my issues were, but unfortunately, it was not. And I have a lot of thoughts about root cause. I might make another video about that, but I just wanted to make this video so that you guys could have the information that you need if you've been discussing getting a hysterectomy or endo-excision surgery with your doctor. So I unfortunately am worse now that I came out of surgery. So I will elaborate on that. So I really kind of felt like I may not have had a choice in the matter. Sooner or later, I would have had to have gotten this surgery done. They found stage 3 endometriosis. Endometriosis right now is classified into 4 stages, stage 1 being the mildest, stage 4 being the most severe, that involves the organs. So endometriosis can actually spread to your organs, your bladder, your intestines, and that becomes a more complicated surgery. I was at stage 3. So it wasn't on my organs yet, but I had a good amount, and again, endometriosis continues to grow, especially if you're not on any treatment for it. I wasn't on birth control or anything like that. So it was going to continue to grow regardless, right? So I felt that we caught it at a really good stage. Stage 3, which is advanced, but it wasn't on my organs yet. I don't even think it was on my uterus. It was just around my uterus, I guess, on the walls and things like that. But seeing that I was not going to have children, and removing your uterus can also slow regrowth of endometriosis, I figured just get it out, get everything out. They did end up taking my cervix with the surgery. I wanted to keep the cervix, but there was a little bit of endo on the cervix. So I told them, if you see endometriosis on the cervix, just take the cervix as well. So they did end up finding a little bit, and they took the cervix. So that becomes a longer recovery, and you also have to be very careful so that you don't have a prolapse. Now, I'm going to say this. My surgery itself went well. There were some issues right after the surgery with, pain management and stuff like that. But to be honest, once I got home, I was having a lot of reactions to the anesthetic and things like that. But the very next day, I was able to start taking my pain medication, which was ibuprofen and Tylenol. I did not have to take any narcotic medication, even though I did have some. I did basically 1 day of the high dose, I think it's Motrin, which is like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen with 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol alternating. And within 1 day, my pain was controlled. The next day, I took regular Advil. And after that, I didn't need any pain meds. Constipation was the worst thing. And if you ever read about hysterectomies and stuff like that, constipation is probably worse than anything else, even the pain of the surgery. But Everything went relatively well. I can't say I don't feel in that area, I don't really feel any different. And I mean, I can't really say much regarding that. I don't have periods anymore, which is great. I don't have cramps anymore, which is great. And I'm not, but as far as hormones go, I'm not really sure where I'm at with that. And I'll tell you guys why. But I don't know. I guess surgery wise, I can't complain. You do get hit with fatigue, but in my case, I started experiencing the fatigue around 6 weeks. But I'm going to rewind a little bit. The first 4 weeks after surgery, I did feel a little bit better from some of my symptoms, like some of the food sensitivities and stuff like that. Like I noticed I wasn't reacting so severely to some things. And I don't want to say that I felt better. I still knew that I was like kind of sensitive to food and all of that, but I noticed that I wasn't having like the same level of reactions, if that makes sense. And it's mostly like GI stuff, bloating, nausea, stuff like that. I also noticed that my mind was very calm for about 4 weeks. I have been having issues with like ruminating a lot, being very angry, just my brain is just constantly going and going and going. And it was weird how can I say, I still knew that I felt, I was having some family issues, so I still knew that I was angry about that, but I felt so much calmer in a way than I had felt in a long time. That lasted for around 4 weeks. Now, around week 5, I started having the ruminations again and that sort of like nonstop thinking. The other thing that I noticed, but that I only noticed it now looking back, was that I was having some nausea. I was having some episodes of nausea, but also nausea like in the morning. I had some follow-ups with my other doctors. So I had a 3-week follow-up with the surgeon, and I still was feeling pretty decent at that time. So I didn't have anything to complain about. The only thing I told her was that, she wanted me on birth control, and I told her I am not going to be able to tolerate birth control. And she mentioned to me, she said, you might want to find maybe an MCAS doctor. And we left it at that. That was the only follow-up I had with the surgeon. And then I had follow-ups with my primary care and my oncologist. Those were week 5. I was noticing that when I would go to my doctor's appointments, they're usually like in the morning or like noontime, something like that. I was having like a little bit of nausea. It was subtle, but it was there. And, I have things that I take. I take ginger tablets. I have my C-bands to help with nausea. So I would just kind of put them on. And, by the time I got into my appointment, I was like, I was okay. But I would notice that I was having that kind of subtle nausea. So week 6, I got hit with the fatigue. You usually get hit with fatigue around that time. Some women deal with fatigue, for months afterwards. But I do remember having that fatigue week 6. And I'm trying to think if I had any other doctor's appointments. I don't think I did during that time where I started having the fatigue. Then I started noticing some acid reflux or reflux type symptoms. And that was week 6 going into week 7. So this is where things started going downhill very, very fast. I started becoming intolerant to, I didn't have a lot of supplements left, but some of my crucial supplements I started developing an intolerance to, and a lot of my food, specifically my protein sources. I did not figure this out for a couple of weeks. So I'm struggling, week 7, I'm starting to notice that reflux. Week 8, I'm starting to notice heart palpitations, really bad heart palpitations, and really bad insomnia. So I know that these symptoms are symptoms of histamine intolerance and mast cell activation syndrome. So I kind of knew, like after a little bit, I was like, it's something that I'm taking, because the palpitations were lasting all day long through the night. So I immediately dropped my supplements because my supplements are the one constant thing that I'm taking throughout the day. And some of those supplements will last a full 24 hours just from one dose. Dropped the supplements, felt better, and then the symptoms would kick up again after a couple of days. So it was a process of elimination that took probably 2 to 3 weeks until I realized it was most of my supplements and all of my protein sources. At this point, I was alternating between chicken and ostrich. I had already developed an intolerance to beef a few years ago after the urea plasma treatment. So I was alternating between ostrich and chicken. So drop the ostrich and chicken. Again, I would feel better temporarily and then would eat something and then start having that reflux issue again. And then I eventually identified that my quinoa was also a problem. So I ended up having to drop everything with protein. I think also my oat milk was causing an issue, dropped my oat milk, but that wasn't from protein. That must have been some other ingredient because I'm still okay with oatmeal. As you can imagine, this has been really devastating, particularly to my weight and to my nutrition. You can probably tell I've lost more weight. I know that this is only my face, but you can see it in my face. You can definitely see it on my body. I have lost, I think, at least 10 pounds. The weird thing was that I was losing weight even prior to the surgery, and I told myself that it was just stress, but I look back on it now and I had been adding more protein to my diet. I had added turkey bacon and this chicken sausage that I get from Aldi. And those two things are, when I look back at the ingredients, are very high in histamine. So even though I was adding more food and I was eating it without too much of a problem, I don't think my body was absorbing it, and it wasn't adding calories because my body was not, I think, absorbing it properly due to the high histamine in the products. So even though I was eating and I was satisfying myself with food, I think when something is just high histamine and you have MCAS or anything like that, your body is just not going to absorb it. You're just not going to assimilate the nutrients. So I had started losing some weight. I had lost a couple of pounds prior to my surgery. And then after my surgery, things really kicked up and I lost even more weight. So obviously I'm very malnourished right now. I'm very underweight. But I have gotten sleep. Once I eliminated all of the things that I was reacting to, my sleep improved and I was able to sleep. I am on Pepcid and omeprazole to control the acid reflux because I was still having acid reflux. And I'm currently trialing some mast cell stabilizers. I might save that for another video. It has been kind of complicated, and it's been a tough experience, but I may just do a separate video on that. I'm currently being evaluated for mast cell activation syndrome. My test results are coming back negative. I've been tested for this stuff before, and my test results always come back negative. So I'm not counting on that to give me a definitive diagnosis. The doctor may have a different opinion about that, but as for me, I'm kind of like, I think I'm just going to have to try the medication and that would probably be more of a reliable diagnosis than the blood work. There's blood work and some urine that you have to give. I think it's called the 24-hour urine catch. I've done it twice already and they never find anything. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't want to discourage people from getting this surgery, but I do want to caution people if you already have, MCAS. And to be honest, a lot of these conditions come together, or usually occur together. Endometriosis and MCAS and histamine intolerance seem to just kind of come together as a package deal. And sometimes when you get surgery, those conditions improve, but sometimes when you get surgery, they do not improve. And as I've been reading into MCAS more, by the way, I suspected I had MCAS years ago and I was told by a doctor that I didn't, so I never pursued a diagnosis. I probably should have, but I was told that I didn't have it, and so I kind of dropped it. But I have seen, on the MCAS subreddit that a lot of people have a similar experience when they have surgery. They'll feel initially a bit better after their surgery, and then sometimes things will flare up. So I don't know, I guess I can't say that I have MCAS because I'm not officially diagnosed. I don't know if I ever will be. So I can't say, oh, if you have MCAS, this could be a dangerous situation. The only thing I would caution is that if you do have MCAS or histamine intolerance, to research this a little bit more carefully. And again, if your symptoms started around the time that you suspect you started with your endometriosis, then it can probably go along with the endometriosis. But I have a slew of other diagnoses ranging from Lyme disease to stiff person syndrome. I had ureaplasma, I had H. pylori. So there's a lot of other stuff that came before all of this. The endo might have started growing around that time, or the Lyme disease may have pre-existed the endo, or the endo before the Lyme disease. My picture is a lot more complicated. But if you're just a very straightforward endo case, the histamine and the MCAS may go along with your endo. But I wanted to make this video so that you have this information, and that you're not going into this blindly. I kind of went into it a little bit blindly. I do wish that I had explored the MCAS a little bit more. But again, I had been told that I did not have that I had histamine intolerance, which again, I don't even know what the difference is between the two. So that's why I wanted to make this video. That way there's something out there for those of you that have been dealing with, mast cell activation or histamine intolerance, something that you could refer to before you get a surgery. And this doesn't just go for hysterectomies, although a hysterectomy can be a little bit more destabilizing because your hormones are a little bit unstable at the beginning. I haven't really noticed hormonally anything, but that can also be because of the weight loss, because you stop ovulating if you're really thin. But I don't really notice too much hormone wise. But even if you're getting like a knee surgery or something and you are a sufferer of MCAS or histamine intolerance, just know that the surgery could possibly destabilize your condition, and make it worse, possibly. This was my experience, and I just wanted to put it out there so that there's something out there that some of you can refer to. I'll come back with other videos. I don't want to get too deep into the MCAS thing because again, I'm not formally diagnosed. So I'll make other videos regarding my experience with medications and things like that. If you want more detailed hysterectomy stuff, I can make another video on that. But this has just been my experience thus far. So thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.